Hello there and welcome back to the studio today. So today we are going to continue the underpainting that we started in yesterday's episode. So we have the composition and the block-in already established. So now we're going to move into the next part, which is going to be the poster image. So we're going to be prioritizing the shapes of light and dark. So on the palette here we have burnt umber, titanium white, and neo magilp medium. And if you would like to know exactly what materials I'm using and or purchase the same type of materials I'm using, I have the materials typed up in the description box down below, along with affiliated Amazon links. So each time you click on one of those links and or decide to purchase the same type of materials that I'm using off of that Amazon link, Amazon will pay me a small amount, so thank you so much in advance for that. So let's go ahead and mix up a value web on the palette. So I'm going to use a little bit of neo magilp medium. Now ideally you want to use less medium with the initial layers, and increase the medium or the amount of medium you use as you go, but I'm using the medium right away, and you know what, I think we'll be fine. I'm just using the neo magilp medium right away just because I want these layers to be dry rather quickly. Okay, so now we're going to go with the titanium white. So we're going to start to move our way up the value scale, and I want a lot of paint in my value web. So this value web will help me keep organized with the values that I put in, and I am going to start to use several brushes now as we start to block in these shapes. So now I'm just increasing the amount of titanium white that I'm using. A little more neo magilp medium, more titanium white, and I think that ought to be about good. And I'm going to keep a photo reference of our model Madeline to the top left corner of your screen so you can refer to it as we develop the painting. Alright, so in terms of prioritizing the shapes of light and dark, since there's such a contrast between all of these light shapes around here and in the background, and of course with the hair, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go in with the dark of the hair first. So a little more neo magilp medium now with a different brush, and it's okay to use straight up burnt umber because burnt umber is very compressed, okay? Or should I say burnt umber is compressed? Burnt umber doesn't get as dark as ivory black or ultramarine blue. So what it does, it allows you, excuse me, it allows you to compress the value range. Okay, so by having a underpainting with a compressed value range, it means that when you transition into the local color stage, you will have much more to build. Okay, so by being able to increase your value spectrum when you introduce color onto a compressed value arrangement, it's just easier. Okay, it's just easier to start off with an underpainting that doesn't have something so dark as ivory black or ultramarine blue. Okay, I don't know, I'm just going off on a tangent right now. So let's just go ahead and continue to block in this shape for the hair, and at this point I am now using bristle brushes. In the beginning with the drawing color, I used synthetics. Now bristle brushes are very useful, especially in oil painting, to carry quite a lot of paint. So I really want to carry a lot of paint now. I want to cover pretty quickly, but I don't want to destroy the outlines that we spent a while trying to develop in yesterday's episode. And by the way, the painting is still wet. This is still the same day for me. Different episode, but same day. Okay, so now we're just blocking in just very basic shape for the top of the hair. I'm gonna just kind of soften that little division there for the hairline. I have a feeling that I'm thinning out the paint too much, so I'm going to use more of the burnt umber. Alright, and yes I was. So I was getting a little too light, so that meant that I was thinning out the paint too much. Now depending on the direction of the brush stroke and how much medium you use, we are now going to start to get some glare, and glare is just, I don't know if you can see it there, but I can definitely see it from my angle. It's just the paint reflecting the light source in the room. So now that we have that dark shape for the hair, you can see we're starting to develop more of a sense of the poster image here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch brushes. We're going to go up in the value range, a little more Neo McGilt medium, just because we want this to dry quickly. And we're going to start to put in a tone for the shadow. And again, I'm just using bristle brushes because they can carry a lot of paint. But even at this stage, I'm trying not to use so much medium, even though I'm using the medium. You'll see, later on that I will continue to add more medium. And like I said, we have, so as of right now, we have one more painting in process. So I will be bouncing around back and forth, between different paintings, just because I don't really like to, Monday through Sunday work on the same painting. I like to put in some variety, and I have some ideas for still life, classical still life, so that'll be another thing to look forward to. And of course, more pet portraits, so definitely be on the lookout for that. So now that we have this little value here for the chin, I think that the only true shadow that I'm going to worry about or focus on for the face is this one right here. So we've already put that shadow in, and now I really need to darken that value for the hair even more, because now we're going to start to actually put in the dark shape for the background. And again, all of this is to prioritize the differentiation between light and shadow. So now we're going to transition into the largest bristle brush that I have, some more Neo McGilt medium. And let's just test out that value. Once I get the value that I want, I will just go ahead and cover the rest, just so you don't have to watch me basically, doing the same thing all over the background. And I think that's pretty good. It's lighter than this, though I think it's a little bit, or it should be a little bit darker than the cast shadow underneath the mandible, though I'm not really that worried about the value differentiation just yet. What I'm more focused on is prioritizing the poster image, the differentiation between light and dark. So let me go ahead and cover the rest of this. Alright, now that we have filled in the rest of that dark shape for the background, the next thing I'm going to do is to relate this shape to this shape. Now I know that this is the poster image, but remember, the poster image means we are prioritizing light and dark. So I am going to subdivide. I am subdividing some of these values, but I'm not that concerned about putting too much value differentiation too early. Rather, I just want to get the dark shapes to to contrast with the light shape. So the chair, there's going to be a little dark shape for the chair here. It's not going to be that that dark, so it's a little bit lighter than the background, but it's not as, let's see here, sorry I can't speak, I'm trying to put this brush stroke. Yeah, you'll notice when I get into focus, I tend not to speak too much. But anyway, I just want this to be like one step lighter than this shape, that's all. And there is going to be a little bit of a darker transition, so I'm going to switch brushes here. So a little bit of a darker transition here. And it's okay, to make it just straight up burnt umber in terms of its value. Just because, again, burnt umber doesn't get as dark as ivory black or ultramarine blue. Maybe it doesn't even get as dark as alizarin permanent, but I don't know. And I am using the Neo McGilt medium quite a bit for this shape here. Okay, so now that we have that dark, let's go ahead and put this shape in. And again, with the underpainting, I'm not really that concerned about finishing any areas or closing up any of the forms, though I could. Maybe I will, but I'm not that concerned about it. Alright, so now that we have that shape, I'm going to relate now all of these darks over here. So there is a much darker shape right underneath of our model's wrist over here. So I got this shape kind of wrong. So this actually goes up a little bit. There we go. Gets darker over here. So I'm going in for these darker shapes first. Okay, so right underneath of the pinky, it's darker, and all through here basically. Whoops. Okay, so it gets darker down there. I'm not too worried about all the halftones in the dress just yet. There we go. So I'm basically gonna frame the fingers with this dark shape. And again, it's just burnt umber and neo McGilt medium. There we go. I'm gonna stand back. Alright, so now I'm faced with a dilemma. I think that this shape is actually darker than this shape. I think. But what I'm going to do is just make it a step lighter than this. So using my value web, a little more neo McGilt medium. There we go. Darker all down here. Okay. Now we have a shape here that's lighter, though there's a little bit of a value here that's kind of nice. So here's a little compositional tip that I've noticed in a lot of classical paintings. Keep in mind the diagonals for the drapery. Sometimes they can point. See how this is pointing towards the focal point of the painting, which is, of course, so again, this is pointing towards the face because the face is the center, not the center, but it's the main star of the composition, basically. So let's see here. Another little shape there. Okay. So now it's going to get lighter. But again, it's going to be still going to be fairly dark. So all I'm doing is with the value web, I'm just making it one step lighter than this one. And it's very important to use bristle brushes. I can't emphasize enough because they do carry quite a lot of paint, and it allows you to move much faster. Let's just cover this whole shape down here. All right. Now that the large dark shapes are blocked in and we just left the lighter shapes alone, you can really see the poster image now starting to create the effect of light, even without much information in here. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to block in some very simple light and dark shapes for the light dress. So now with a different brush and a little more neo McGilt medium, we are going to raise the value for the dress. So we're going to have a light that's almost titanium white, but just maybe 1 or 2 steps darker. So we're most likely going to be right around here. And now for the shadow of the light shirt, I'm going to switch brushes again. Let's say this one. Let's get a clean brush. So a different brush. So I'm going to show you the shadow tone that I'm going to use for the light dress. We're going to want a pretty, light shadow for the dark dress. For the light dress, we're going to want a pretty light shadow, but we still want to make sure that these, the division between light and shadow is still clear. So maybe just a little bit darker. Alright, so now we have the brushes ready. And we're probably going to spend a little more time in this step. Ideally I would be using flake white or some kind of lead-based white, that would be my preference, especially for the light of the dress, just because you know, it allows you to use more paint without raising the value too much, thus allowing, you know, a thicker layer of paint. But you know, for this large of a surface, using flake white would be a little too expensive for me at this point. So the titanium white will do, but I'm just telling you, I would probably prefer to use a you know, lead-based white like flake white. So now here's where the shadow tone is going to come into play. So see how switching between brushes really saves you a lot of time in terms of the mixing, though you probably can't really see that little shape that I just put in. Alright, so I have to be very selective with where I put these light and shadow shapes. So here's one, okay? So the way that I'm choosing which shadow shape to put in is not so much by, you know, the photo reference, but rather, you know, I'm looking at the shapes. So suppose here we have the division between like the pectoral over here, so I will put, you know, a darker shape there. And then over here we have a little dark plane underneath of the fabric. So I'm kind of looking for the direction of the forms. And so right here, all of this is pretty much going to be, you know, in dark. Now I have a choice whether or not I want to, you know, get into the specific folds of the fabric, but I'm not going to go there today. Rather, I'm going to be looking for the more simple shape. So here's what I'm talking about, okay? Cast shadow for the hand. So I think that the face and the hands, I will put in more values, and that will be more about the smaller value transitions as opposed to these larger ones. So here's a simple little cast shadow from the hand. I think I am going to leave these areas alone. Another little halftone here. All right, let's go back to the light brush. And I'm letting the you know, the tone underneath do some of the work. So with less pressure, it's a little bit darker. Though I'm not too focused or worried about, you know, too much value differentiation just yet. A bit lighter over here. Okay, so now all over here, so I'm going to use more medium. Now ideally, okay, following the fat over lean principle, whoops, I forgot shape here. So following the fat over lean principle, or rule, or whatever you want to call it, to oil painting, ideally you want to use less medium in your initial layers, okay? But it's not that important, to be honest. Probably gonna get in trouble for saying that, but you know, I'm giving you my honest thoughts. So here we go, just filling in the perimeter around the hair. A little more medium. So I'm gonna let the value underneath kind of serve as some of the, you know, the halftones. So let's look at this whole plane here, okay? Whole plane here. Turning this way. Why am I saying whole plane? I don't know, I'm just being silly today. Just trying to block in these light and dark shapes. And you know, even here I can, if I want, I can put in a darker tone here. But the idea with the you know, the clothing is to have a strategy, okay? So I'm not telling myself that I'm going to, you know, I'm not going to go for the final direction of the folds just yet. So all of this, I'm actually just going to flatten. Gotta strategize. Painting is pretty difficult, especially classical painting like what we're doing here. So, you know, having a strategy can really, really make things much easier for us. One more medium. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide how I'm going to crop off the this dark shape here for the knee. So I'm going to use the value for the shadow, put that in, and you know those folds that I put in are really starting to bother me. So you know, I think if I'm going to put the folds, I better be very confident for where I'm going to put them. So let me just, what I'm doing is I'm just softening all of these values, okay? Just trying to, you know, make it even softer. And like I usually say, when in doubt, blur it out. So that's what I'm doing here. Kind of blurring that shape a little bit. A little more. I have to mix up that light value again. Using a lot of paint. A lot of medium. Okay. Yeah, I don't really think that I'm going to go for, you know, the exact patterning today, since that's not really what this stage is about. This stage is about just prioritizing the light and dark shapes. All right, so I'm going to put in this shadow. Now this shadow is pretty important because this is the shadow being casted from this whatever this is here. I think it's a cushion on the chair. Okay, that's good. Again, we're going to leave the flesh tones or the flesh areas alone for now. Shadow back here. I'm actually going to angle this a little bit higher up towards the focal point over here. And again, just going to blur. And now I'm going to stand back and just adjust the dark shape for the hair even more. I do think that, again, I can still go darker, and yes, I can. So it just tons more burnt umber. Now I'm running a risk of this not drying tomorrow, but I think we'll be okay. I do want to start a still life painting. Question of the day, what are you working on? What are you painting these days? Okay, see how that value is kind of contrasting a little more with this area here? So this dark inevitably makes these areas look a little bit lighter in comparison, so that's actually good. So this time I kind of worked a little bit in the reverse of how I started the last painting, the one that's still, you know, that we're still working on. So this time I kind of went for the perimeter, the outside dark shapes, as opposed to these inner shapes. Last time I went for the inner shapes. And again, that just goes to show that you don't really have to, you know, do everything the same way every single time. Though we are still in the same stage, the underpainting stage, and we're prioritizing light and dark. You know, we're not always going to make everything. We're not going to always follow the same kind of recipe, so to speak. I'm just using a fan brush to soften. Now this fan brush is pretty much expired by now, but I kind of soften some of these edges. There we go. So with the underpainting, you really want to go softer and lighter with the underpainting, just because as you progress in the further stages, it's actually easier to sharpen and to darken than it is to soften and to lighten. Looks like we missed a spot. Alright, so now that we have blocked in the simple shapes of light and dark, I can now say that the poster image is now mostly complete. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is come back in probably after this layer dries and continue to develop the the halftones for the face, probably still in monochrome. That being said, remember today's episode is a continuation of yesterday's. So I have been working on this pretty much all day and I'm pretty tired. That being said, always remember, in a world that can be so negative, and I mean so negative, be the spark that ignites positivity amongst all of us. If you put on a smile, if you are happy, if you are in a positive state, it's contagious. Everyone else will be positive. And this is my positivity. I can have the worst day ever. I come into the studio and I'm painting, and all of a sudden I'm cheerful again. I'm happy again. So that being said, I really do hope that you have a wonderful day. I wish you the best, and I truly wish you the best in all of your artwork, and I'll see you tomorrow.